Excellent. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our participants. You're just joining us. One more admit there. Very, very nice to have you all joining us this morning. A little after 11, so we're gonna jump in and let people join us as they can. Just a reminder that your cameras are off right now, but if you'd like, you can turn them on so we can see each other. We'll leave our mics off except for our speakers, and we'll open those back up when it's time for some conversations, if that makes sense. So I encourage you to turn on your cameras, turn on the grid, look, the view, so we can see each other. And why don't we jump right in? Oh, sorry, and bear with me. This is the first time I've run a meeting and facilitated a meeting in Zoom, so I just want to make sure everyone's in, and it looks like we are. Just going to test the chat room to say hello and make sure you can see that, because we're going to ask a question in a bit, and if you can just confirm or respond with a hello back to everybody, that would be great. Back, look at that, John and Aaron. Awesome. What a gift to have you all join me on a Thursday morning to chat about servant leadership. I am so grateful for your time to jump in on this conversation. Specifically thankful to Glenna and Melanie for their time as well. Really appreciate the chance to get together, and really, you know, quite selfishly, I just want to learn from you guys, because I've got lots of thinking on this, and I'm eager to hear your thoughts on that as well. So we're going to formally introduce Melanie and Glenna in a bit. But I thought what I'd do is start with our usual 2 Four Simple Words acknowledgements. We'll talk about some logistics, run through our agenda, have a quick chat in the chat room, and get a really quick overview of 4 Simple Words. Let's talk about maybe what we want to achieve today, and then we're going to open it up to the greatness that is Melanie and Glenna. So hopefully that works for everybody, and I'm assuming everyone can hear me all right. So the first things first, as we like to do with all our sessions, just a quick land acknowledgement that no matter where you're sitting today, no matter which community you're involved in, there were communities that were here before us, and there were leaders here before us, there were healers here before us, and there were groups of people getting together to figure out how to better their communities long before us. So I think it's just important for us as servant leaders to ground ourselves and remind ourselves that those communities were here before we were, and the experience we're having, the success we're having in our community is because of the success they have. And it's up to us to continue to steward our water, our land, and our air as those communities did, because really we're just handing this off to other people. And that's our responsibility, handing off strong communities. So we owe a debt of thanks to those that came before us. And I think we also need to acknowledge that truth has to come before reconciliation. So I appreciate the chance just to ground us in that. The other is a personal acknowledgement. You've probably heard this before, and it's not so much an acknowledgement as it is fact. I was born white, male, middle class in Southern Ontario in the 1970s. And that means I come to today's conversation with pretty much every box of privilege, because I also am happily married to my beautiful wife, Melanie. So that means that my journey into this conversation today has been probably very different than many of yours. I want to acknowledge that. I want to be held accountable to that. And as the best ally, I try to be the best ally I can be. In fact, that's one of the motivations for this entire conversation. So put that out there. If I need pushback on any of that, if I need to hear comments during the session or otherwise, I welcome that feedback. I just want to acknowledge that I have a different journey here, and my goal, both through Pearl Street, Four Simple Words, and life, is indeed to make sure that other voices are singing just as loud as mine. So hope that makes sense, and that aligns with everybody's values and on how they're here today. Just a reminder that our cameras are off right now. We'll turn them back on in a bit. Hopefully all your microphones are on, or otherwise this is really not much use of your time. Throw some questions or comments in the chat room. I'll be throwing a question there soon. I'm going to close the room momentarily, just best practice for Zoom, just to make sure that no one else can jump in and share stuff they shouldn't be sharing. And a reminder, we are recording this today. My hope is that this becomes a fairly regular thing. We can throw these up at Four Simple Words and people can come in and check in on them. That and a hard stop by noon, if not sooner, in respect of all your times. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions, comments, or feedback on that? Everyone good? I think you can wave your hands. I think I put a tool on where you can wave hands now or give thumbs up. And I'm sorry, I don't know where that is, but anyway, if you want to wave a hand or give me a thumbs up, until you turn your cameras on and say, go away, Kurt, I'm going to keep going. Our agenda then today. So we've done our introductions, quick introduction to 4 Simple Words and servant leadership, which I'll do. I'm going to ask a simple question. Click on, look at this, Mike Anderson, as always, teaching. He teaches and he teaches. Click on reactions. Yes, so click on reactions and then you can tell me what a terrible job I'm doing. Our agenda will, I want to talk about 4 Simple Words and servant leadership. Have a quick question in the chat room. Then we're going to hear from Glenna or Melanie, and then Glenna, and then myself with some practical learnings and suggestions we've had for the past, literally 2 or 3 weeks. And then really open it up to comments, questions, and we'll turn on everyone's cameras and we can all, or mics, and we can all share some thoughts. I hope that makes sense. So really quickly, just this 4 Simple Words thing. This has been a lifelong learning of mine and passion of mine. As many of you know, I turned 50 on March 8th, which seems like a lifetime, like 50 years ago now. And this is either going to be a vanity project that will do no harm, or this could in fact be something that, becomes bigger and more for Kurt. I don't know that yet, and I'm sharing that with you because I'm really here to explore what this looks like and be having conversations. The 4 Simple Words came from my grandmother, who was an awesome, strong, robust, kick-ass, take no prisoners person. I loved her dearly. Profound impact on me. And the 4 Simple Words, of course, are, it's not about me. You've probably all heard that before, but I want to ground us in that. And Elsie was my grandmother. As I say, she was crazy smart, crazy strong. And those 4 Simple Words have really impacted me in my leadership journey. And so 4 Simple Words is now me kind of very publicly saying, what does servant leadership look like? Am I being the best servant leader that I can be? What comes next for me? So that is where 4 Simple Words are. We're at FourSimpleWords.ca. I'm trying to social, I'm trying to blog. If you're not on the newsletter yet, I encourage you to do that as well. I did start this on March 8th, and actually I was in Toronto with my wife, Melanie, celebrating the event, and I cannot believe the radical change that has happened since then. And I guess I want to ground us in this idea that we are in probably a rate of change and newness that our world hasn't seen at least since the 1930s, if not before. And I think we've got 2 choices. We can either come out of this better or weaker. And I think as servant leaders, our job is to help people choose the stronger, choose the better. And I really hope that today's conversation and our ongoing learnings together can be part of that, not just for us, but also for our teams. I think there is a choice here. And many of my conversations now are with people around, and I can literally see them, standing on this knife saying, this is all gonna go to shit, or we can do something with it. And so I'm hoping that 4 Simple Words, today's conversation, can be help us as leaders to focus on how we want to use our energy, what we want to do with our time, and how we can serve our families, our communities, and our teams. That is my ultimate goal with this. And again, I do appreciate the chance to be a part of that conversation. Really quickly, servant leadership. This is Ken Blanchard's definition. If you haven't read any of his books yet, I encourage you to do so. We'll have some references for you when we send out our notes. There's 2 parts, servant and there's leadership. It starts with the leadership. This is the really important piece. It's up to us as leaders to set clarity on the why and the what. Why we're here as a team and what we're going to do. That is our job as leaders, to set that tone and set the direction for our teams. Again, at home, in our communities, at our workplaces. Next comes the servant piece, because then I'm flipping that on its head and I'm asking you, how do I best support you to get there? I want to get out of your way, and I want to support you to get out of it. I want to support you as best to get there. So I often get pushed back on, especially a lot of my large corporate friends who I've been, planting the seed with, and it's, that soft stuff, and you're letting people run over you. Too much people, not enough task. No, and I want to be really, really clear on this. This is about people, and it's about getting stuff done. And any success I've had in my life, in terms of leading people and working through Pearl Street or outside in my home, has been because I've helped set direction, I've helped people understand the why and the what, and then I've asked them, how are you going to get there? And I think that if we want sustainable results that keep coming back, not the one time, okay, we made our quarter, we want the sustainable results where we're constantly learning and growing. Servant leadership for me is the best way to do that. So with that, boy, that's a lot of talking from Kurt. I wanna take that learning, or that grounding, if you will, and really talk about this new world that we've all been thrust into, which is welcome to my kitchen / office. And all our teams have been put into, many of our teams, most of our teams have been put into a virtual environment. And we as servant leaders need to be and show flexibility with that. So that's today's conversation. I hope that's where we can learn. So let me ask you this question, and I'll get you to start responding in the chat room. Is how has working virtually changed your relationship with your team? How has working virtually changed your relationship with your team? And I just welcome any comments in there, and Glenna and Melanie and I will be looking at that and maybe reflecting on that a bit. So give you a chance to think about that. How has working virtually changed your relationship with your team? Save space. If it's gone to hell in the handbasket, we want to hear that. If it's made it better, that's great too. So let us know what you think in terms of how has working virtually change your relationship with your team. So, and I'm gonna use your names if that's all right. You know, Kristen's here said it's actually brought us closer. Any thoughts on that? And I'll formally introduce our speakers before they jump in, but let's just have a quick review of some of the, or think through some of these comments. Glenna and Melanie, what are you seeing in those chats?
So, yeah, so I would say that in some respects, it has, I agree with what Kristen's saying, like it has, you know, kind of almost forced us to connect in a different way. And so there's a little bit more that you can try to learn from people because they're connecting with you sometimes like individually, one-to-one, as opposed to everybody all together. But I'm also feeling a little bit like on the side sometimes with what Rodman was saying, that it has really opened up some amazing opportunities and some excitement. Then on the other thing, it's forcing us all to change and adapt. And when we have to change and stretch and grow, it's uncomfortable. And nobody likes to feel uncomfortable. So when you're working through those tensions, it can sometimes, you know, that can sometimes not bring out the best in people, right?
Yeah. Excellent. Lana, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's being said. And yeah, it in certain ways, like I feel like with my team that we've had more honest dialogue than we've ever had. And that's part of what Kristen was saying, that it's kind of leveled the playing field and we just have to communicate. We just can't let things go because there's just not really the space for that because we just need to figure out how to work together. But I do like Shakiba's comment that the awkward learning curve kind of brings us together because it is kind of nice. Like there's going to be learnings and failures, and maybe it creates, you know, having the space within our team to have failures is so important all the time. And maybe having an environment where we are going to be failing more is actually good to develop the safety for that within our team going forward. So that's maybe a good learning for us to build on in the long term.
I love that. Failing more and kind of embracing that, right? That's an exciting opportunity too. Yeah. I just looking at the comments, I see so many great servant leaders. I'm going to shout out to Mike Anderson, who is principal at Mel School and is a great leader. And, you know, his comment there on having positive staff relationships with staff before has helped me. Boy, how true is that, right? Like this is going to be, it's going to be so much harder for us to build relationships now if we didn't have them, if we didn't have strong or at least communicative relationships. Now we've got to figure out a way to how to do that. So building on the success we've had before is really, really important. And I think for me has been grounding in, oh, that time well spent, right? Really well. Any other quick reflections here? Yeah, the awkward learning curve. Yeah, maybe just quickly on that one. We are all in this together. And I think that there's some empowerment that comes from, again, us as servant leaders being assigned, I don't know, like this is new to me too. We're going to figure it out together. I'm going to come back to that word acknowledgement in a bit, but I think that's really important. Awesome feedback. Thanks all for that. And Brahman just commented, I do find some people can easily withdraw from the virtual space. And that's true. And so that's one of the conversations we want to have around how do we make sure we're drawing people out and making sure that we're creating those spaces for conversation. So awesome. Two very smart and talented and accomplished guests with us today. And again, I'm just so humbled they have taken time out of their day to join us. We're going to start with Glenna, who is Executive Director of AgScape, which is Ontario's leader in agriculture and food education. And many of you will probably know Glenna as former Executive Director from the Children's Foundation in Guelph, Wellington. Glenna's team has been working from home for about 2 or 3 weeks now. So this is very new to them. They've got an office in Milton, and this virtual piece is fairly new to them. When I think of Glenna, I think of a team builder, I think of a compassionate leader, and someone who really builds systems well. You know, Glenna equals success, and there's just no other way to say that. And I've had the pleasure of working with her on a number of projects and have always been impressed, and I've learned so much from her. She's active in all kinds of things. You also know her as the leader of SOAR, which is the Southern Ontario Amazing Race, which I know broke her heart to have to postpone this year. And she's also currently chair of FCS. So Glenna is out there. She's doing stuff. She is awesome. I love hanging out with Glenna, and her laugh is infectious. So with that, Glenna, thoughts on how we serve our teams remotely?
Awesome. Thank you. You can always rely on Kurt for that little boost that you need. So thank you, Kurt. I have to admit this morning, you know, like speaking of the awkward learning curve, and this is new to all of us, as Kurt said, that we are new virtually with my team. So I was having a bit of like imposter syndrome a little bit preparing for this, like, okay, who am I to be speaking about this? But I definitely feel that I've had some good learnings, and our team has adapted pretty well. And I really recognize and identified with Mike's comment about the strong positive relationships before really helping make the transition smooth. So one of the things for me is really recognizing our strengths and our values as a team and using those to make the transition smooth to the virtual environment. And first and foremost with this, and I've just seen not everyone do this, but number one in all of this, our staff's safety and health, physical and mental health, needs to be the number one priority. And no matter what we are doing, you know, we want them to be efficient and effective at their jobs, but like they need to be taking breaks. They need to be doing all of this stuff. It's really important. And it's something that I've really pushed myself on, that I need to set that example to them and making sure that they are protecting their personal time, because there are so many extra stressors right now. But I think the biggest thing, like at the beginning, just acknowledging like this is going to be tough. We're going to make mistakes and we can handle it. We are a strong team. Let's just be honest. And I really feel that I have a stronger relationship with my team than I did before. We've had really frank conversations about things that didn't work. For example, at the beginning, I had one project that basically went almost from like idea to completion by one person. And when it got to the completion, 3 other people in the team were like, wait a second, this isn't what I thought this was going to be at all. So it was a great learning experience of how we need to work so much harder to have that ongoing feedback loop. We need to have that buy-in at the beginning as a team before we're progressing with any project, and making sure that we are all on the same page before an individual just goes like steamrolling through a project. And it was inefficient at the beginning, but it was a great learning experience from the beginning about how we need to be having sort of those extra communications. And, you know, I was saying to Kurt that I learned this new term, the asynchronous collaboration, that you're really losing that, right? Like where you're able to just talk through from desk to desk. And that's, I think, like your biggest loss of how you're kind of just checking in on that ongoing basis. So Kristen would know this, that pretty much everything I do in leadership always has something to do with awesome. There's always an awesome. So what we've done is we've developed a being awesome virtually team sort of protocol. That's a living document. And where we started was I said to the team, like, what's working for you and what's not? And then let's start digging into pulling in what they've felt was really working as far as communication, and then what were the challenges. And we really dug into that. Some of the things, along with the collaboration and the loss of alignment on some projects, was, you know, that we just need to commit, that we need to take extra time to communicate, and scheduling that into all of our project work and just ongoing communications. In the document, I've got really clear expectations from an HR perspective, but like hours, communicating your hours, we're completely flexible with them, but making sure that the team knows when you're available, when you're not. There's expectations on when you need to be monitoring email and phone and when you're not. And that's also on the mental health side too, to say it's okay to put those boundaries between work and personal. And then we've also implemented some new kind of communication and meeting processes. So we've always done weekly team meetings, but I am now also doing weekly one-on-one meetings. And I think a lot of managers probably do that on a regular basis, but I hadn't been doing that before. And that's what I've found to be really beneficial. And it always starts with something like, how is working remotely working for you? Or how are you feeling this week? How's your energy level? How is your workload? And it's just that check-in. And I think actually every meeting needs to have those conversations at the beginning, and then you get to the priorities. And I think the priorities is another big piece, that making sure that we are really aligned with what's most important right now, and in those one-on-one meetings and those team meetings. So more than ever, I'm doing that, checking in on what the priorities are. Lastly, just wanted to mention the social connection. And I think that different people are doing different things to help with this. But some of the things that we have implemented is, like I said, just making sure that every meeting has time also for a bit of social, like, hey, what did you do last night? What's everyone cooking right now? You know, those little connections. Also, we're using, we're on 365, so using our team's chats to just say, good morning, how was your evening? How are you feeling? At the end of the night, saying good night. So we're trying to replace that interaction that you're having in the office just with the chat environment, sharing dog pics, funny videos, whatever that is. As well, we're making sure that every week we're doing at least one fun sort of social activity. So whether it's a game, a Zoom game, or just getting together for a coffee break, or something that is kind of replacing those little fun interactions that you have in the office. So I wasn't actually paying attention to the time, so I'm going to stop talking because I feel like but those are just some of the things that we've been doing on our team that have been working well.
Awesome. Really insightful. And if anyone has specific questions for Glenna, throw them in the chat group and we can run them past her. Just a couple quick reflections that I know. I love, first of all, yeah, with Glenna, the word awesome is going to be there, which is great. And I, you know, for me, and that's something that I actually haven't done clearly as I could have, is the, you know, when are you going to be working, right? What are the expectations? We have a bit of that chat because I'll, you know, as leaders, we may be putting more time or effort than our teams are. And I think that's really good, just to give people permission to say, you know, if you're here to hear and that going to change, you throw it in the appropriate place and where we go. That's really insightful. And of course, just starting, as always you do, you know, starting at those values, you know, what matters to us as a team, and quite frankly, to one another. So I really, yeah, appreciate those. Any comments or questions for Glenna specifically? We got a note there from Kristen saying, I think we struggle with part-time staff who want less of team building because they simply have less time. Ooh, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've had that feedback too with even just, so prior to this even, just recognizing that what each team member wants for engagement and recognition is an individual preference. And that's something too that I've been leaning on into more recently, because I think I typically in the past used to always just be like, okay, as a group, we're going to do this. But like, not everyone wants to sit down and have lunch together. Sometimes they need to run out and get their groceries because that's their only time or whatever it is. And so that whole group engagement and fun isn't the same for everyone. So I think that goes back to those values and understanding what each individual employee needs. And it's challenging because it makes it more difficult for us. We have to put more time for it, right? Like, because then you might have to do something different for one group versus another. And like, are you going to force people to be part of social time? And so there's certain things that I think that we can be flexible with, but we do have to appeal to their needs and the time that they have available. And if that's something, maybe they just don't feel that it's important for them and they're okay with that. Like, I have one team member that actually, this sounds awful, but like, she doesn't really care about socializing with her colleagues. And people think that's a negative, but she's just, her family is what makes her feel more positive. It's not those positives. So she wants to come in, get her job done, go back and spend time with her family. She doesn't want to kind of waste that work time. And that's okay. As long as her relationship in a work context is still working with the team, then I think that's okay.
Yeah, good, well done. Excellent. Glenna, so great, thank you. I'm going to hand things over to Melanie Lang, who is equally smart and talented. I truly am the thorn between the two roses here. Melanie is the executive director of the John F., and I got to read it out because this is like the longest title in the world, right?
I know.
Melanie is executive director of the John F. Wood Center for Business and Student Enterprise, housed within the Gordon S. Lang School of Business and Economics at the University of Guelph. Nice to say Melanie's on campus doing lots of cool things. I've had the pleasure of working with Melanie a couple different projects, and I really admire and appreciate Melanie as a strong collaborator and doer. And I really appreciate her leadership in getting stuff done and bringing in different voices. And I think that's the essence of your work. And you can tell us a bit about that if you're interested. But I think Melanie is helping students on campus connect with ideas and people off campus to make things better with an entrepreneurship lens to it. But it's not just about business. So I hope that's a fair summary.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Melanie was a 40 under 40. She's been a woman of distinction. She's an active community leader. She's former chair of the Guelph Chamber on the Center Wellington Community Foundation.
Yay,
Shakira. And is also on the board of the Guelph Wellington Business Enterprise Center. So Melanie lives in Center Wellington, which is where all the cool kids do. Hey, so fellow Center Wellingtonite. And she is crazy because she's working on her PhD, ladies and gentlemen, which I got my grade 3, so I don't know what I don't even know what that means. Anyway, hard worker, smart person. Please welcome Melanie, and she's going to share her thoughts with us. Mel, hand it over to you.
Oh my goodness, thanks so much. Funny little wee tidbit before we jump in. So last week I was chatting, was it last week or we were chatting? Anyway, so I, had Zoom on and we were connecting, and my one daughter came into the room and she was waiting for us to finish so that she could ask me a question. And so then when we finished, she says, "Who are you talking to?" And so then I told her who Kurt was and stuff. And she goes, "He could be like your hype man. He's like really, really excited. Like, I think you could just consider him your hype man." And I'm like, that's actually a really great way to summarize it. Because, you get excited about really cool and interesting things, and you're awesome at encouraging others. So thanks so much for having me be here today to kind of share our time together. Yeah, you know what? It's been a pretty interesting time, and I mean that both in like interesting good and interesting steep learning curve way. And echoing a lot of what Glenna was saying in terms of how to connect differently than what what we've traditionally done. And actually, one of my team members here is on the call with us today, Erin Doherty. And so she's been a really good kind of point person for me to kind of keep me in check. So a lot of what Kurt was sharing at the beginning was, you know, how can we be the leader that we need to be, but also doing right by what our team needs, right? So not saying, laying out a plan and saying this is how it's going to be, but essentially allowing people to come forward. And Erin can attest to this, or I'm sure you'll see her nodding. I am an introvert at heart who has been forced to be this extroverted being my entire career. And so working from home, I have to say I'm kind of loving it. Like I know that sounds terrible, but I love cocooning myself, and I can interact with people, but yet I also have that time where I can kind of re-energize myself in certain ways. But what I've recognized throughout this process is not everybody on my team is that way. So when you're interacting in a work setting, everybody is kind of bringing their ideal outward facing selves to you, right? Whereas in now this new environment, we're seeing the multiple selves that people have show up in different ways. And so, you're almost kind of going, oh, I wasn't expecting that reaction, or that was surprising, or so having to learn each other. I feel like we're getting to know each other all over again, and in different kind of settings. And even so, if I can just reflect on myself for a moment, how I'm showing up, because in our in office work setting, in our public work setting, we could have these impromptu conversations and deliberations, and we could change on a dime because all of a sudden new information came forward, and we could notify the team with like, hey gang, pivoting, we're changing course, this is what we're doing. Whereas now we have to be really purposeful in how we interact. So if I've hung up from a Zoom call and I think, okay, I need to message the team later and let them know, and then something else comes up, and then later is ours. So I find, sometimes we're playing catch up all the time, and bringing our team along to make sure that they always have the most relevant information so that they can go back into their portfolios and do what they need to do as the best that they can do. And so having to adjust my, that type of, I would say, style or activities has been an interesting learning. And then the other thing I would say too is, giving ourselves permission to try things and then have it not work. So one of the things that I would say has worked really, really well for our team, and this is, I'm going to and Erin's on the bottom of my screen, so I'm going to give a shout out to Erin here, but she's really good at saying, I don't want to say enforcing, but really making sure, no, we are connecting every day at 10 o'clock. We're doing a live Zoom check-in. That's our, team huddle, I guess, if you will. And there are some folks that is like every day at 10 o'clock, but then it's been so good. Like, it's been so good because you get to see the people and you can connect with them, and you can get their, you can see their body language. So if you're saying, hey gang, like, this is what I'm thinking we can do, you can get that immediate reaction that you maybe had been missing if you're just doing phone calls or emails, right? It's really hard to connect with people over email. And so that's been really, really good. But as I was mentioning at the beginning about that whole like stretching and you feel uncomfortable through this process, getting into the routine of meeting every day at 10 o'clock and doing that. But like, there were some folks who kind of pushed back against that. Like, that wasn't something that they were interested in doing because maybe they had, other things that they were wanting to do at that time. So we just had to have a really open conversation about the importance of being connected, and that in a time like this, we need to put ourselves, first, and in terms of connecting with people is so important. In even myself, the self-proclaimed introvert, I still need to connect with people. And so that's been really, really good. So that's, I would say, is one of really great learnings for me is to make sure that you have people on your team that can push you and can maybe call you out on things and say, you know what, no, actually this, I feel like this is really important. I feel like we need to do this. And kind of hold ourselves accountable to that. And so that's, I would say, been one thing that's been really, really, really helpful. And then we can, and we share about stuff that is not sometimes even work related. Sometimes we share about, all right, everybody tell us your best tech fail this week, or tell us about your most embarrassing conference call. Did something happen? Like I was about to give a presentation last week to, there was like 18 people on the call, and I was about, like, my screens were put up, and then I was about to like open my mouth and speak just when my daughter sent something to the printer. So that loud machine in the back kicked on. The dog head bumped at the door and busted into the office and was trying to get up in my lap. Like, it was a perfect storm of chaos, and I was still trying to be like composed, and I was like, but what are you gonna do, right? And then everybody laughed and it was fine. But it's just kind of letting, just, it's like, this is not the time to try to be the perfect leader, the perfect, person on this little grid that we have. Like, this is what people see of us, is this grid now. And so we're all living within these boxes, and we're trying to create perfection within this grid system that we've been allocated. And that's not fair to us to try to maintain order amongst chaos within these boxes. Like, that's just not realistic. So sometimes, I'll be meeting with the team and I'll just say, okay, it's time to be real here. I'm flipping the camera. There's my pile of laundry over there. Like, everything's really tidy where I'm sitting, but I'm just going to give you the view of what I'm looking at right now, So I think it's so important just to be real with your team, be vulnerable with your team. And I think it just then gives them permission to reciprocate and be the same with you. And that just will further create some really good dialogue, and it'll help you with building relationships, be it full-time staff, part-time staff, that having that kind of connection, I think, is so important.
Awesome.
That's all.
What's your laundry right now, or we'll save that for later?
What's that? Sorry?
Do you want to show us your laundry, or we'll look at that?
So here's another little funny little story. So my husband and I had been sharing an office that lasted all of 3 minutes. So we each had our desk in there, and my daughter had found this little meme or whatever, and it said, husband, like couples working from home, husband, 3 monitors and loudest keyboard he found at Best Buy, and wife sitting on the couch with a cup of tea or wherever, and she took a picture, and I was literally sitting on a chair in my bedroom with this teeny tiny little, like, one of those TV tables, like those little, with my laptop. And I just, so if the kitchen got too loud, I moved to my room. If that got boring, I would move. Like, I was just kind of traveling around. So yesterday I went down to the basement and carved out a little corner in the basement for myself. So I'm hoping that this is my new home for a little bit. But yeah, like, I was feeling in a time where everybody was feeling displaced and sent home, I was feeling displaced within my own home, because I just kind of kept trying all these different things. I'd be like, okay, maybe this is a good spot for me. Nope, trying something else today. Like, it just, yeah. So I felt like every time I had a Zoom team call with my team, I had a different background, because I was kind of wandering throughout the house.
Love that.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Melly. So that was some great insights there. Bram, I just want to acknowledge your question. It's a great one. We're going to do a quick reflection, and I'm going to circle back to questions. So I'm going to encourage anyone else who's got questions that they just want to chat about with around the topics, or anything specifically, throw it in there, and we will have that chat. And yeah, I think that balancing childcare and work for staff is really important. Really quickly, I just want to throw 1 or 2 things in, that I want to open it up, only because it's been my learning. And for me, it's been kind of profound, and Bev's on the call, and she can speak to this a bit. my big learning from, and kind of building very much on the great things that both Glenn and Melanie have shared, my big takeaway from this past 3 weeks is I have to, this, in fact, it is about me, so I hear the irony here. I'm starting with me as a servant leader, and I have to let go of my expectations around efficiency. Yeah. I'm a small business owner. I sell my time. Great work, on time, on budget. That is what we do. And now I've lost complete control of that. So I need to start, it took me a day or two to realize, oh no, we can do this, you know, no problem, we'll just adapt. Like, we work remotely anyway. No, this fund, and I've had a couple advisors reflect this back for me in terms of, you know, some of my conversations with them, and they said, whoa, dude, like, chill. So I think my own learning and my development here as a servant leader the past 3 weeks has been letting go of some of those expectations and quite frankly, resetting them. That follows up with acknowledgement, which is my own acknowledgement there around, quite frankly, I'm grieving the fact that, oh, son of a gun, you know, we've lost this momentum, we've lost this program. I think when I share that with the team, I'm able to then better communicate my, you know, where I'm coming from. And in fact, they're able to, you know, share some of what they're grieving in terms of what's missing from their worlds as well. So it's not about me, always starts with me, and there's irony there, I fully appreciate that. But understanding my own pain points here is really important. The last piece that I want to share, again, just building on the great things we've heard already, is the rallying cry. And this is Pat Lencioni language, but our rallying cry is different. Is radically different now as a team than it was 3 weeks ago. Quite frankly, it's how are we going to land this plane with grace, right? Like, it's a very honest, hard conversation to be having, but things are radically changing. Things are slowing down. How are we going to do so in the most graceful, meaningful way possible to our staff and to our clients? So I think that rallying cry and what that focus is the other piece. Well, again, once I did my own acknowledgement, once I let go, we did some acknowledgement, that allowed us to find some common language around what is our focus going to be. And quite frankly, that turns into how are we best serving our clients and how are we best serving our team. So I think those are three things I just wanted to share from that. There's some really good questions in the chat room here. And Bronwyn started the first one with around insights on employees who are balancing childcare and work. And what I think I'm going to do is create a little chaos. And let's see, I think I can do this. Can I do this as a group? I'm going to open up all our mics and that we can have a bit of a chat around this. So here we go. I guess I can't do it individually. So all your mics are coming on. So make sure you're not, well, whatever. Unmute. And Bronwyn, yeah, you asked a great question there around helping staff with childcare. So I'm wondering if anyone has any thoughts they want to share on that.
I could share. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess similar to what John was saying here, that, yeah, I think around the flexibility, one of the things that resonated with me really early was actually a conversation that I had with one of my girlfriends who said that she feels right now that she is being a shit parent and a shit employee. And that just really hit me from an empathy point of view, because the stress that is weighing on people when you feel you're not able to give 100% to either of those roles as leaders, we need to support that as much as we can. So whatever I can do to help provide, you know, maybe some lowered expectations or flexibility to accommodate that is so important for the long-term sustainability of our teams. So what kind of worked for us was, like what John said, is flexibility around the hours. And so I've had team members working on weekends and then not working on certain days of the week. So complete flexibility with schedule, or shifting their days where they start at 1 p.m. and work till later. So they're able to share the childcare with their spouse. So then that just gets back to really communicating with the rest of the team, like, this is where I'm available. And you got to get really strategic with how you're working on collaborative projects, because then you might not get that feedback right away that you need. So it does get a little bit tricky at times, but that has been working pretty well for our team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say similarly, like maybe I can even just let Erin talk to this as well. But if we're talking about maybe booking a meeting, you know, Erin, you know, she's like blocked, like chunked her days. So she'll say, actually, if we could just kind of, you know, have all my meetings in this block of time, I've kind of, and we all use like an online calendaring system. So we see like, okay, Erin, this is her window. This is where Tyler, you know, so like we kind of then would try to fill up those windows, because yeah, there is childcare considerations. And then, you know, you're just kind of open and honest about it. And then and that's the thing too. It's like I think with the first person to share that, you're always you share it and then you wait. Like you wait to see what people's reaction is going to be. And really everybody's reaction is, okay, cool. Yeah, got it. And then they move on. And so it's like your ego has created all this stress in your body and like your mind. Oh my gosh, they're going to hate me. And they're going to think that I'm you know, like I'm not a good, like, you know, team member. And nobody's thinking that. Like nobody is thinking that. And so then you just kind of let your shoulders relax, and then you're just clear and open and honest, and it's like, okay, you know. Yeah, I think everybody is just trying to be really, I don't think forgiving is the right word, but just allow, like, just, you know, as long as there's that open dialogue, I think we're all pretty good about whatever our own individual needs are. Like this is very, very different, very different. My sister works, she's working, well, all my sisters are working home now, but the one, she has 3 kids, and I'm not saying we should do this, but I'm just saying this is what she did the one time. She was on this conference call and she really needed like an hour. And so she put one of those, you know, those door handle you know, you can't turn the handle. So she put it on the outside of the door and closed the door because there was no lock on her office door. And she says it was hilarious and awesome, kind of, because her kids couldn't get in. And, you know, she could see their fingers under the doors. They were like, Mommy, like they were trying to get in. And it was just, but she was like, oh, okay. You know, like sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to get through it. Like give yourself a break, you know? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the balancing, either helping our team with their childcare or ourselves? Any thoughts on that?
I've made a point to ask team members with children how those kids are doing. I feel that inviting that part of that conversation, if they feel comfortable to share, but it just makes them feel that it's okay to talk about them. And oh my gosh, Kim, you wouldn't believe what, like, you know, the banging that you hear in the background is because they're protesting that I'm now coming to this meeting. And so that's been an opportunity to connect more on a human to human, right? Like, what are my kids up to? What are your kids up to?
Yeah.
How are they feeling about you being at home? Because it's not just us that are adjusting to us being at home. It's our little people and our medium size, you know, teenagers and all of those moving parts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like we no longer have like personal space or private time. Yeah. Like we don't, like we're either like this, we're either FaceTiming with people, or we have people in our bubbles, right? And so I was answering emails, and I, you know, went into one of the rooms, and I was sitting there. Next thing you know, I had a person here, and I had one here, and it was just like, it's like they follow you around, right? And that's okay. Like, it's just like, and that's okay. Everybody kind of has different needs at different times of day. But Kim, I liked what you were saying in terms of asking questions. And I think that was the other thing in terms of a learning for me, is that, you know, pre-COVID, my assumption is that, you know, okay, so I've shared something with the team. If they don't understand, they, you know, they'll reach out, they'll ask me or whatever. Like, so I put information out. If I don't hear back, I assume everybody's good, right? So you know, and so now what's happening is is that, so that I'm used to maybe not asking directly. And so now I'm having to ask and to remind myself, you know, so have you had time to reflect on that? How does everybody feel about that? Is there anything you'd like to, like, I'm having to ask these questions more so than I did before, because we're not having those impromptu interactions where something might come up and they'll say, oh, hey, I was thinking about that. Like, we don't have those kinds of, those touch points anymore. So I'm having to be more purposeful about my interactions with my staff. And that is not something that's organic to who I am. You know, so I've had to really adjust my style. And that's, you know, I'm getting better at it. Erin, please nod. Am I getting better at it? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
But it's still like, it's still something I have to think about, right? And so I'm hopeful and anxious and excited for the time where then that becomes my new normal. But right now I'm like, oh yes, ask the question. Oh yes, you know, so it's that kind of stuff.
This is a good reminder that, you know, we're all people, right? Like, we're peoples as peoples, right? And I really take Glenna's comment around the other responsibilities, the other caregiver roles we have. Older, like those of us in that sandwich generation, you know, I am so grateful that my dad is now close and local and not living, you know, an hour and a half away, because that would have been, I don't know, like I'm just so grateful for that. So it's just bringing that back to this, we're all, you know, we all bring our best selves to work and then we go home to very different lives and worlds, and acknowledging that difference and just giving people time, to Kim's point, being able to draw them in, ask about it, be genuine about it. I think that's one of the gifts that we as servant leaders can really bring our teams, is that, you know, humanizing the conversation and just reminding us that we are indeed all in this together. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm wondering if, I just thought it'd be good if we do a quick round of practical tips that anyone has, or any learnings you've had around running a good virtual team. I'm going to let you think that over. The one I'm going to share really quickly is from Pat Lencioni. If you haven't figured it out, I've been jumping on a few of his podcasts. And he has planted the seed that Zoom soup does not taste good. And Zoom soup for him is where, in one meeting, does tactics, does strategy, does the check-in, does the how are you, how are the kids, and it's a very inefficient meeting. And my takeaway from him is, you know, when we do this in person, we need to do it on virtually as well. The purpose of this meeting is X, our goal is Y, and then we do a check-in at the end at our decision making. And even if we are then, same group is moving on to another conversation, we almost need to step back and come back in, because now we're not talking about tactics, we're talking about strategy. So this idea that Zoom soup tastes terrible, I really, really love, and that's been a big takeaway for me. 4 or 5 minutes left. Any other practical tips people would like to share?
Yeah, Kurt, one of the things that I've found is we've had a number of staff meetings, and we have a chat bar on the side. We're using Google Meet because it's what our school board has as their internal tool. But I trying to, you know, be inclusive and letting it open it up so that everyone can talk. We have about 25 people on our team. So I ask everyone to mute their microphones. And when I'm sharing, so I can share my desktop, but it's challenging because then I can't see the chat window. So I ask one staff member to read the chat for me and let me know if there's any urgent questions I need to address. So it's sort of like a co-facilitator. But I also remind everyone, if there's specific things, like really small little technical things that only apply to you, like reach out to me after. You can send me a text or send me an email or give me a call, just so that it's not, where I'm not spending a lot of time answering one person's question when no one else needs that answer.
If I can, oh no, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, go ahead, Shiva.
I was just going to say, if I can give a quick plug for a really awesome experience that we actually had with Kurt just a few weeks before everything shut down. The staff participated in the DISC training and Kurt provided that to us. But kind of, you know, formally or not, doing that kind of mindful self-reflection as not only as leader, but also as individual employees. I'm so glad that we had that opportunity, and now we've learned something about everyone else. And it, like, more than ever, it's so important for me to recognize when and how I'm you know, an introvert or an extrovert, or how, and knowing those kinds of details about my staff is really helpful. And so finding ways to adapt the communication to make it fit with how others are and how I know they like to be interacted with, or I know some people like to ask the one-on-one questions in the group meeting, like you said, Mike, you know, and creating just enough space to make them feel like their voice is allowed to be heard, but now we got to take it offline, and we'll do that. And just knowing staff, and then reminding staff to be conscious of who they are and reflecting in what their personalities are. It has been really good to do. So
I think actually, like, what a gift that you had that learning right before this happened, because like so much insight now that you can draw on for that. So that's actually really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that comes to mind is, as we're all on Zoom here, is this idea of Zoom fatigue too, right? Like, so we're now essentially replacing, like before it was like the meeting fatigue that we all have, and now we have Zoom. It's like we've replaced one with the other. And so now more than ever, it's really easy to get, you know, you wake up, our commute is what, like a 3-minute walk to wherever we decide to sit that day. And then you sit, and then you're on face to face with different people throughout the day on emails. So I think now more than ever, having those reminders to get up, step away from the screen, and have interactions and conversations with people in a different way. Like even just like, I took a Zoom call outside one day because I've been inside all day, and I just said to the person, I'm sitting outside. I'm sorry if the wind is too loud, I'll mute my mic, but I just need to be outside right now because I've been inside all day. And they were like, oh, that's great. Like, again, like people are not going to judge you when you need to do things for yourself, and so just do it and be open, and just give ourselves permission. We would never hold our team. We would never think that about our team if somebody came to us with these kinds of statements or requests. So why are we doing that to ourselves? So.
Awesome. That is a strong close to a very, very powerful hour. How about a round of applause for Glenna and Melanie and their insights? Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us here, guys. This is awesome.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining. As I say, I'm so appreciative of your time and the learnings I was able to take away from this. My hope is that we can do this fairly often. I encourage you, if you're not following us at FourSimpleWords.ca, sign up for the newsletter. Follow me on social, just trying to figure out where that Four Simple Words starts to separate. Anyway, so great to have you all here. Thank you for your time, and I hope you all have a very restful and sun-filled weekend. With that, I will shut her off. And
take care, everyone. Get outside, get some sunshine.
Enjoy your long weekend.
You too. Take care. Bye. Good to see you.